Yes, sir. Welcome back to Talkin Nets, episode 87. Keith McPherson and Hudson Flynn joining you on Monday, late afternoon. I think there's a game tonight in New York people have been tweeting about. We'll get to that. But first off, I want to say sorry for the wait. Sorry for the break, the All-Star break. We definitely took some time to ourselves in the last week. We did the Nets Twitter All-Star episode on Monday night, put that out Thursday. Then we didn't hit you with a pod. And I apologize for that. I know if this is my favorite podcast, I'm like, where y'all at? Hudson Flynn, where you at, bro? How's it going up there in the Bronx?
Man, I'm having a good time. If we were ever going to take a week off, last week was not a bad week to do it. The weather was nice. It was heating up in New York. It felt good, but now it's cold again. Back to basketball weather. Back to talking about some interesting topics. Who runs New York? Who runs the NBA? Whether it's a Nets city or a Nets world. Who needs to know? Some good stuff to talk about today. A couple wins to talk about today. And man, I'm excited because the Nets keep winning. So this is going to keep being a really fun podcast.
Oh, yeah. Your Brooklyn Nets are 26-13, second in the East. We're just sitting here one game back, waiting on the Sixers to lose. We know it's coming. We know Embiid is out, and we know they're going to take an L, and we'll be on top. We're number 2 in the power rankings, and we know all that's going to change real soon. The Nets have won 12 out of their last 13, and I think we're currently on a 4-game win streak. I might be wrong, might be 5. It'll be 5 after tonight. But let's knock out some news, and then we're going to talk about the Celtics game, the first game back from the break, and then we'll talk about the Pistons game from Saturday night. We'll play some voicemails, get out of here. So without further ado, the news. I guess we got to start off here. KD is out, and I know he's on the way back, but I guess, with not knowing when KD was going to return before the All-Star break, and then the All-Star break happening, and now these first 2 games happen, and now a third game is happening tonight, and we learn that KD is out. They're taking their time on this. The hamstring is not something to play with, especially now that we're in the second half and we're looking to make a run. We want KD to come back and be back and stay back. What are you thinking about, this extended wait? Nets fans, stay patient. Got to wait for KD to come back.
Man, Nets fans waited like 550 days to see Kevin Durant on the court. We're a patient group. We're winning. It's not like we're struggling without him. We have arguably this season the best player in the NBA on the court in James Harden. Like, the Nets are fine without him. And so the longer we can make sure he's 100% healthy and he's 100% ready to go, the better. And the Nets have taken their time with a lot of players. We're seeing them take their time with Blake Griffin. They took their time with Nick Claxton. They know what they're doing when it comes to getting people back at 100%. They've done it with KD once, and they're doing it again because why rush him back? The Nets don't need it. The Nets are, like you said, 12-1 in our last 13. The Nets are all good missing out on KD. Obviously, we want to see him. We want to enjoy watching him play. But, I mean, if we can get him fully healthy for 16 wins in the playoffs, that's all I need. That is all I need, because at the end of the day, as long as we can get that top seed, which it looks like we're going to, I mean, hopefully the Sixers lose, but of course they're without Embiid, so it's going to be tougher for them. I don't really care about what happens in the regular season. I care about what happens in the playoffs. And as long as KD's back for the playoffs and is ready to dominate and is ready to win Finals MVP, I got no worries.
It'll be here fast. It'll be here quick. If it's another 1-2 weeks, whatever, like Hudson said, and I keep going back to the video that I put out when Malika Andrews dropped the news that KD was going to miss time after that first week he was out. I'm like, so what? Whatever. Like, if KD doesn't play, the scary hours that were promised are going to come when they matter most. And if this team is clicking like they're clicking without KD, like, y'all need to be worried about Nick Claxton. Y'all need to be worried about Bruce Brown. Y'all need to be worried about Landry Shamet. Like, the scary part is the Nets are playing this good right now without KD, who is arguably the best player in the NBA. So we'll move on from that. Other news, TLC is back. We saw the injury report that said KD is out, and it also said that TLC is back. What are you expecting?
Not back in the rotation.
Yeah, what are you expecting from our guy? I don't know. I think somebody on Twitter was like, yeah, TLC's back. And I'm like, I'm excited to see how many minutes he gets. Like, I'll be looking to see where he is, because even if he's, back from that right knee soreness, I said a couple episodes ago, you about to lose your job. And I think that's effectively what happened. I think him sitting out, I think he sat out 3 games with this knee soreness. I don't think it was really about, how sore his knee was. I think it was about giving some other guys an opportunity, and guys have kind of taken advantage of that opportunity.
Those were DNPs. I don't consider those injury misses. I consider those DNPs. And look, we can see it go a couple of ways. We saw what happened when Landry Shamet got DNP'd. A little while back, I put out his stats since getting DNP'd, and he's been balling out. He's been playing amazing. I mean, he's shooting over 50% this month, shot close to it last month, and he's been insane. Obviously, we're going to talk about what he did in the last game the Nets played on his birthday, the Big 2-4. But hopefully we get that from TLC, a little bit of bounce back, a little bit of fight. When he gets on the court, hopefully we see those shots start to fall. Obviously, none of us have ever seen a player as streaky as TLC. He can go out and make 5 of 5 from 3 and then miss all of them in the next game. But hopefully he gets some of that consistency back and he works, with some kind of renewed vigor, because it looked like for a while when he was playing bad, there was not really any consequences because the Nets couldn't take him out of the rotation. We didn't have another player to slot in. But here we are now, gets a couple of DNPs, hopefully back. If there was an injury, hopefully back from it. I'm looking to see a bounce back, but at the same time, I don't want him to come in and mess with the current rotations we have going, because I love what the Nets have right now, and I love what Landry Shamet is doing in the role that he kind of took away from TLC. So hopefully he comes back and improves, but at the same time, hopefully he doesn't mess with what we have going on right now, because what we have going on right now is a real good thing.
Yeah, the Nets are looking good. Shout out to Coach Nash. I feel like not enough people are giving Coach Nash his roses, not giving him enough respect based on how well these guys have performed. It took him a little while. Obviously, this is his rookie season as head coach, but he's starting to, fit the role more. And there's, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of thing. There's no need to force TLC in. I'll be interested to see how many minutes he gets tonight. I don't think he'll be the first guy off the bench. I don't think he'll be as involved with that second unit. But if we smoke the Knicks, TLC, shoot it, man. Catch and shoot. Do what you got to do. And speaking of doing what you got to do, I think the Lakers need to do what they got to do and get Andre Drummond, bro. He might be the last infinity stone. And if it's between the Nets and the Lakers to land Andre Drummond, the Lakers should go ahead and do that just to ante up and make it that more exciting. I do want Andre Drummond, of course. I was on record saying I didn't want Blake Griffin because I'm leaning towards Andre Drummond, but why not both? Why not both guys? Lakers, if you let us get Andre Drummond, it is a wrap. It is all the way a wrap, whether KD plays, whatever.
It's fully and 100% a wrap. I mean, just like you said, we didn't necessarily, you might have wanted him over Blake Griffin. You might have wanted him over whoever. If the Nets can get him, obviously they got to get him. They have the money. I think they have more money than the Lakers can offer with their injury exception, as well as the veteran MLE. So they have the money to give to him, and they have the roster spot. They have the time to give him, because obviously there's, iffy about, whether Anthony Davis is going to play, when he's going to play, when he's going to come back. But when he's back, he's that team starting center. And obviously he can slot the power forward. Drummond can play at center. But if you're looking for where you're going to get the biggest role, you're looking at Brooklyn. You're looking at a team with a very clear void at center. We love Nick Claxton, but he doesn't have that same kind of play style. He's not a big body. He's more of a finesse guy. And obviously he's still learning. DJ, we've all complained about DJ. We've all said what we're going to say about DJ. So I'm just thinking, let's reunite the 2019 Pistons and get Blake Griffin, Drummond, and Bruce Brown all on the same team.
I'm with it. Talk about the bad boys. They go from Detroit to Brooklyn. They could be the new Brooklyn bad boys. All right. Last but not least from the news, we got to mention PJ Tucker. Now, it seems like the Nets are out on PJ Tucker. It also seems like Houston's asking price was too large. I think someone tweeted out at me asking about PJ Tucker a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, why would Houston do that? They don't have a clue what to do over there. And why would they do another trade with us after they just traded their franchise, their MVP, the best player they've had in the last decade, to us? I don't think they're trying to do us any more favors. And then there was a wrinkle in there about Spencer Dinwiddie that made me perk up as a Spencer Dinwiddie fan. I'm like, yo, tech guy with a jumper coming back in June. They might have a plan for Spence to rejoin us. What are your thoughts on PJ Tucker?
We're good. We're good.
Right.
Don't need him. We
I'm
got Jeff
good.
Green. We got Blake Griffin. We're fine. We're not giving up freaking Spencer Dinwiddie for PJ Tucker. They want a young player with potential. So that puts Claxton on the table. We're taking him right back off the table. There's a reason that the Nets kind of hit him before all those trade negotiations went down with the Rockets and with all those other teams to get James Harden on the Nets. I think they were hiding him. I think they were trying to prevent other teams from seeing who the Nets had, before that trade went down, because they might have asked for him. And the Nets are not giving him up for PJ Tucker. It made sense before, but with their asking price going up and with the Nets not really having a spot to give him, it just doesn't make much sense. And to be honest, I know he's playing on a bad team that's lost, 16 games in a row now? He just doesn't look very good, and he looks old, and it looks like it's getting to him, and the Nets are so fine and just really just don't need him at all, especially at that asking price.
Yeah, we signing everybody, but we're not really signing everybody. We're not doing just any trade. Like, in Sean Marks, we trust. Okay, let's move on and start talking about these games. First, I want to play a voicemail from our guy, JJ, big supporter, big fan. And he goes on for a little longer than a minute, so bear with us here.
Hey, Hudson and Keith, it's JJ from New Jersey. And I just got done watching Nets and Celtics play a basketball game, I guess. I watched with my dad for the first time. I convinced him to watch the game. I'd already gotten my grandfather. He's actually from Brooklyn, grew up in Brooklyn, so I've converted him. He's a completely Brooklyn fan. I think it's starting to work on my dad a little bit. He was amazed by just how quickly basketball can turn around. He really only watches baseball, but it just goes to show how much basketball is starting to it is already a huge sport, but how much more it's growing just based on how quick it is and how the game always happens. But he was super impressed by the Kyrie performance tonight, the 40 points. And after a while, when they put him on the bench late in the third, he's like, "Why are they taking Kyrie off?" I'm like, "Because he's tired. He can't play the entire game, even though we wish he could." My one negative of the game today would be James Harden stepped back without passing the ball around. The amount of times where he killed out possessions by just trying to do a step back three because he had no space and no one was really getting open. My one big positive other than Kyrie, Landry Shamet was really good at shooting threes. He definitely helped the bleeding. Thanks, guys.
Yo, so shout out to JJ. Shout out to JJ's
JJ's dad.
we are now converting, I guess, baseball fans into basketball fans, older fans that only watch baseball. Hey, if you watch baseball on the Yes Network, you might as well flip over on the other off nights or the nights, Yankees play spring training games 105. Then you got the Nets on at night, 7:30, 8 o'clock. Come this way. Join us. Synergy, Nets World, Yankees Universe. Also, he mentioned that performance by Kyrie, which we will speak about in a second. Magical artist. And Landry Shamet. Man, I'm loving to see that from Landry. And let's talk now about the Celtics. The Nets beat the Celtics 121-109. The first game back Thursday night in Brooklyn. And Hudson and I were firing off tweets about what their owners said, what their fans said. Where is Kyrie? Oh, Kyrie was supposed to lead us to a championship. We banked on Kyrie. We thought we were set with Kyrie. Oh, but people also were saying Kyrie should retire, right? When Kyrie took his little leave of absence, Celtics fans were saying, oh, well, at least we don't got to deal with that headache. No, you got to deal with a 40-point headache in your face, on your head, nowhere to go to escape that. Kyrie, masterful. I don't even have the numbers in front of me, but I think he was like 15 to 23, 5 from 8 from deep. And just watching the game, he was in complete control. Obviously, he knows that nobody over there can check him. He's played with all those guys on the Celtics, whether it was Jaylen Brown, whether it was Tatum. Him and Tatum were having a Kobe off. When you were looking at the moves that him and Tatum, I think Tatum dropped 30 that game. When you're looking at the moves that him and Tatum were doing, I'm like, these guys went to the Mamba Academy. But yeah, Smart couldn't check Kyrie. He was having his way. He was doing what he wanted. And what I love the most out of our guy, King Kai, post-game press conference comes, he takes that platform and he uses it. He never not uses his platform. That's all he's doing. Okay, I'm player of the game tonight. I dropped 40 out there. I'm going to get on the mic and I'm going to say some real stuff that doesn't necessarily have to do about me or my 40 buckets. Just real talk that I think y'all need to hear. Hudson, what'd you think, man?
He let his game do the talking on the court. He doesn't need to talk about basketball in the press conference. He doesn't need to like revel in what he did. He was balling out. We all know that. There's really not much to be said about that, right? Like he went out and he played a beautiful game against a team that he hates. And it was awesome. And I hate the Celtics and you hate the Celtics. We hate Boston sports forever. So that was just amazing. Just watching him go off and just shut up all these salty Celtics fans and shut them up even more because another narrative popped up from that game. The Nets traded all these picks to them. They essentially handed them this young core with the Jays. And what are they doing with it? They're certainly not winning games with them. Going out here, they were worse than the Knicks the other day. I think they actually jumped back ahead of the Knicks, but still, it's just like the Nets are just doing so many good, crazy things on the court, off the court. It's just all amazing, and it's just so fun to see, especially when they go up against good teams, rival teams, that they can really stick it to. And I, for one, love it. I love playing these rivalry games. And we're going to go and we're going to talk about this Knicks game a little bit later. Whether that's a rivalry or not, you can argue about that. But these games, when Twitter gets all fired up and Nets fans get all fired up, that's the right energy. I'll take that game over, like a Pistons game any of the day, obviously. So it's just awesome to see that everyone's getting hyped up. The Nets are playing well. Nets Twitter is firing on all cylinders. And everyone's really just hyped about the Nets because anytime that there's a challenge put in front of them, they're conquering it, whether it's individually in terms of Kyrie dropping big points against his former team, or as a team, the Nets beating the team that they gave all those picks, all those players to so long ago.
Yeah, I love it. I'm starting to really enjoy this Celtics-Nets rivalry, obviously, because we're winning the games and we're dominant and we're better than them. And all they can do is cry about it. I'm wearing it's not 2013, it's 7-11-13, basically because as a Nets fan, we all had to live through that. And they said that was going to bury us for a decade. Well, here we are 8 years later, not a decade. And you guys are sitting in 5th place crying about Kyrie and why it didn't work. You had all the draft capital. You had Danny Ainge making moves, making trades, getting you guys like, it didn't work because you're trash. And now you got to just deal with it. Your little window that you had. I don't know. Jaylen Brown is great. Jason Tatum is great, but you got nothing on the Nets. And that's going to be for the next few years at least. So I remember just being miserable thinking that we made that stupid trade and it was going to bury us for a long time. But nah, we started coming back around 2018, 2019, and that attracted the players that we have now. And these salty Boston fans, all they can do is be tight about it. All right, next game. Let's move on from the Celtics game to the Pistons game. Saturday night in Brooklyn, the Nets beat the Pistons 100-95. Kind of an ugly game, kind of a slow start. And for me, I always talk about how that first Pistons game at Little Caesars Arena, that was the NBA turning point. There's a show called NFL Turning Point where they show you the turning point in each game that was the moment that, the play broke or whatever for the team to win. I think when the championship DVD comes out for the Brooklyn Nets, they're going to harken back to us giving up 122 points in Detroit to the Pistons, scrubs. And I mean, we didn't blow them out the second time around, but I think I put out the starting 5 graphic and I said, expect a different game. We did get a different game. It was a hard fought game. It wasn't pretty. Like I said, it was an ugly game, but it's another win in a line of wins. It's just about getting the W. If Harden has to turn it on late to secure the win, good. Like he's the closer. I think I said in our one of the thoughts after the game post that we put out, I was like, Kyrie dropping 40, sure, put him in the MVP conversation, but he's going off like that when he's playing the Celtics. Not every night he can, but like he also put 37 on the Celtics last time, follows it up with 40. But Harden consistently is in the driver's seat. He's driving this thing. Harden, when it's all said and done, even with KD coming back, I think will be the MVP because he's just almost an auto triple-double. And when
he's the point guard.
Right, and he's got the ball in his hands. Like when he has to score, he scores. When he's got a dish, he dishes. He makes other players around him better. And this was an example. I think the Pistons Twitter tweeted out after the game that like I think the Nets won the trade. Like this James Harden trade is working out pretty well for them.
I mean, like, where's the lie? It's just it's so comical looking back. And we had Evan Roberts on, and he was not a fan of the trade initially, but he was like, "Yeah, I was so wrong. Like, if you can't admit that you were wrong about this trade, then who are you?" And there's been a lot of flip flopping going on. We saw Stephen A. Smith say some things and flip flop, saying Kyrie should be in the MVP candidate after saying he should retire. And that's what it seems like is going on with the Nets. Everyone had something to hate about. Everyone had something to say. But it's just you can't argue with wins. You can't argue with numbers. Men lie, women lie, stats, numbers, all of that does not. And that's just the way that it is for the Nets now. They're just shutting people up every time they play games. And it's just so awesome to see. And a while back, we were on another podcast. Keith and I were guesting on another podcast, the Fireside Nets podcast. And the question was posed whether J. Kidd or Kyrie is the better point guard. But now we're looking and we're seeing, stats packages from the Yes Network, numbers we're looking at. And I know Keith is a big J. Kidd stan, but James Harden is, looking like he's about to break a lot of records pretty quickly that J. Kidd set here, so long ago. So I want to ask you, Keith, how are you feeling about those comparisons now?
Man, it's funny you say that because I had that same thought. We were looking at the Kyrie versus J. Kidd comparison. The graphics they're putting out, they're showing you the triple-double leaders, and Harden has already tied J. Kidd's third best season as far as triple-doubles go for the Nets. I think he had 9 in like 2003, 2004, but his high is 12. So Harden has to get 3 more triple-doubles. He's got to get 3 games, 3 more triple-double games out of the next, I don't know, 30-some.
Do you think he's going to do it?
Absolutely. I think he's going to like blow it out of the water. I think he's going to put up like 10 more than J. Kidd. He might end up with like 22. And it's just crazy to think about, right? This is what happens. These guys, like Harden, when he first came in here, we took a couple L's. He was in his post-game press conference like, yeah, whatever. We just got to practice. Yeah, we'll get some practice time. We haven't really gotten that much practice time. And I will never forget his debut with 14 assists. He came in here wanting to be exactly what he is. It took some time to figure it out. Kyrie had to declare you're the point guard, and the media ran with all that. But look how magical it's been. When Kyrie can just go get his shot and Harden can distribute. And Harden said watching Kyrie is like a show. But watch some of these other guys, it's like a show too. Like I said, Harden makes Claxton better, makes Bruce Brown better, makes DeAndre Jordan way better. In this Pistons game where Harden's dribbling, he dishes it to DeAndre. DeAndre moves with him, passes it back to him. Then he throws up the lob. DeAndre slams down the lob. I'm like, yo, that is why they're talking at the end of the game. That is why last time you saw us play the Pistons, these two were very animated in how they were talking to each other. They're trying to get better. They're working on getting better. And Harden's just a guy that stirs the drink, man. When I looked at this game, I was out. It was my fiance's birthday. We were at dinner, and I was trying to watch on my phone at the table, but not be like, completely disrespectful to everybody there, but I still got to keep an eye on it. And I just like the fact that, like I said, we gave up 122 points to these guys. We kept them under 100 this time. We only scored 100, but like Jeremy Grant had 22. I think last time he had his career high against us with like 36. So shut him down. Didn't get killed in the paint. And guys did enough to win. Harden led all scorers with 24, but Shamet with 15. Bro, if Shamet is giving us a consistent like 15 to 20 off the bench, we are spoiled. Reminder that KD is not here. We're getting points off of that guy. Like, he's starting to figure it out. Nick Claxton. Now, Nick only had 8. His minutes, I don't know. I think they're still figuring out whether he should be getting more minutes than DeAndre Jordan. DeAndre Jordan played 30 minutes in that game. He only played 17, Nick Claxton. But whatever. It could be experiment time. I don't know. The Nets are doing what they got to do without their full team, and they are figuring out who is who and what's what against a team like the Pistons. I don't need y'all to smoke the Pistons. We have played down to our competition earlier in this year. We're not doing that anymore. That is done.
We're experimenting, and we're trying new things out, and we're seeing what sticks, and we're seeing what doesn't. And like we've talked about, that's what this season is all about up until the postseason, right? We're figuring out, like, what's our death lineup going to be? What's our closing lineup going to be? We have to figure out all these things and, get Coach Nash up to being ready to coach in the playoffs, because that's a big transition, and just make sure that this team is ready and this team is growing. This team isn't done yet. There are moves to be made. There are rotational pieces that are going to change, whether that's through trade, through buyout, whether that's just something like we saw this season, TLC getting minutes, losing those minutes, and getting them replaced by Landry Shamet. Like, the Nets are changing, they're growing, and they're always improving. And that's what I love about this team is we don't go out and we don't see the same Nets team every night. They're not winning the same way every night. That defense narrative, that's gone. That's tired at this point. The Nets have been a top 15 defensive team in the last and over this winning streak against good teams. So for me, it's just the Nets are growing, the Nets are evolving, and they're figuring out by the time they get to the playoffs what exactly is going to be this recipe for success that they have perfected in the regular season. And that's what's so exciting about it, is that we're not going to see the same Nets team every night. At the beginning of the year, I talked about same problems, playing down to your opponents, no defense. Those problems are slowly fading. We're out rebounding teams sometimes. We're, doing the things that we didn't do. We're limiting turnovers. But at the end of the day, we're winning games, and that's all that matters. And that's what this Nets team is built to do. And I see no reason why they're not going to keep winning games. That's why, we're talked about just waiting for the 76ers to lose, because I don't think the Nets are going to lose. Every time they go into a game, I haven't thought the Nets were going to lose in so long. It's ridiculous. And that's what we're waiting for now. We're just waiting for this season, the regular season, to finish so that we can go to the postseason and win those 16 games.
I was just thinking about, I was going through my hard drive trying to just delete files, and I found that clip of you and I in the office in the summer watching the Nets get swept. And I just had to tweet it out. I'm like, listen, the Nets used to lose. We're getting so used to winning, we're forgetting how much we used to take L's and how much fun we didn't have watching the Nets at times. And man, we've come a long way. The tables have turned with the Celtics. Game 39 of 72, the Nets beat the Pistons, avenged that loss on National Pizza Day. The Nets beat the Pistons, the Nets beat the Pistons 100-95. I have in my notes to give a shout out to Michael Grady. Michael Grady was on episode 39, something like that. Yes Network. Yes Network's been showing big love. Also want to shout out the Yes Network app. I promise you, they're not paying me for this, but it's a game changer. I've been tweeting about it. I've been posting on my Instagram about it because it's not even close. One, the app itself is so much better than Fox Sports Go. You got to download it. You got to check it out. It's 4K HD, super HD clear video. They've got stats in there. They've got all information on the teams. If you're like Hudson and I, and you're a Yankee fan, Nets fan, it's the perfect app night after night, no matter where you are. I was out to dinner watching the game on the Nets, watching the game on the Nets app. The Nets do have an app. You should download that too. But watching the game on the Yes Network app, shout out to the Yes Network. I plan to be talking to them real soon as we're getting closer to opening day and the playoffs for basketball. But all right, we got a shift here. I feel like this is the moment we've all been waiting for. Not really. Let's talk about the Knicks. I just feel like this, right? And there's no script here. There's no notes. I just want to talk about the Knicks. Let's go back a little bit, right? A couple days ago, Patrick Ewing seemed like he was a little upset in his post-game presser. Georgetown, he's got those Georgetown boys looking good. They come to MSG. The legend is walking around the building. They're asking this guy to show ID, show his tag, show his credentials everywhere he goes in the place. He said everybody in the building should know who he is. And he's right. They have pictures of him in the building. And he was part of the best Knicks team they've had in, 20 years. So the disrespect shown to one Patrick Ewing is just on brand for the Knicks. The Knicks I look at as the Mets of the NBA. LOL Knicks. They can't get out of their own way. And I complimented them on this podcast. I did compliment the organization, right? Because I said they did it right with the tickets. They let fans in, real fans, or at least people that look like regular New Yorkers, regular fans, not bougie fans. So I gave them a compliment, right? But now I'm taking that compliment back because your fans ruin everything. These Knicks fans have this weird chip on their shoulder about us. It's like this strange thing They say we talk about them, but no, we don't talk about you until it's time to play you. Like right now on this podcast, we're playing y'all tonight in Brooklyn, game 40, and it's not going to go how you think it's going to go. These Knicks fans, I don't know if they think we're trying to battle for the city, because we're not. We got bigger dreams than that. We're trying to be champions of the world. I don't know if these Knicks fans are scared, like they're losing fans. I get this narrative on Twitter all the time where I think guys like KFC from Barstool said this. A couple other like personalities have said this. Oh, the Nets could win every single game and no one would be talking about them. Well, why are you tweeting about them? The Nets could win the finals and the talk of the town will be Mets versus Yankees in June. Nah, no, it won't. We'll see you at the parade. What are you talking about? It's just so fake. And it's like, all right, tonight we will see what happens. We'll see. But we're in first place. What are the Knicks in? 6th, 7th place? The Knicks are
Maybe
in
even
7th
fifth,
place.
I don't care.
They're in 7th place. We're not worried about y'all. We think about y'all literally never. You're not in the competition with us. If the playoffs started today, that 2-7 matchup is what you would get. So if y'all Knicks fans need to like imagine that for yourselves tonight, go ahead. You're not a threat though. And we're not trying to win the city. You can have the city. The city can be yours. But the Nets are trying to win the finals this year and have a parade and bring an actual title back to New York. And when that happens, our world, Nets world for real. I'm done. Rant over.
I mean, look, it's the Knicks, right? I would say 96% of the year, we like to ignore the Knicks. We don't talk about the Knicks. We don't get involved in these petty debates. But the Nets play the Knicks 4 times a year. And on those 4 days, we get involved in the toxicity and the drama that is talking about the Nets on Twitter. And if it looks like I've been a little distracted looking at my phone on this podcast, it's because when we post things about the Knicks, people respond. Talk about Knicks for clicks. It's just so comical to see all of the people coming to the Knicks defense, all of these Knicks fans coming out of the woodwork to be like, oh, we live in your head rent free. I love it. I love the banter. I love the discussion, but I love it on 4 days out of the year. The 4 games that we play the Knicks, we can get involved in that. But at the end of the day, we're just in a different stratosphere. No one's talking about a Nets-Knicks Eastern Conference Finals. No one's talking about a Nets-Knicks, like, ooh, who's the best team in the East? The Knicks are like a cute, good story. Like, oh my God, look at this. They have Julius Randle and he's like cool. And they have Emmanuel Quickly and he can hit a floater. That's nice. Like it's cool to see them. Yeah, I forgot they got Derrick Rose on their team. Like they're a good, feel good story. They're like, I don't know, like they're just kind of whatever. And honestly,
RJ Barrett, let's go Duke. Duke did not make the tournament this year.
Honestly, when I look at them, I'm just like, okay, like it's interesting. You know, a lot of people talking about the Nets and the Knicks. They didn't talk about the last time the Nets played the Knicks on the night of the James Harden trade when the Nets went out with like 7 players and beat the Knicks. Like
yeah, Reggie Perry was getting buckets with us.
Reggie Perry was getting buckets. We beat them with 7 players. Like it's just ridiculous. But we're going to get involved. We're going to mix it up. And I mean, look, let's just have fun because like Keith said, at the end of the day, it's not about the Knicks. It's not about who runs New York. It's not about who's going to be there on the day of the parade when the Nets win it. It's about getting that parade. It's about running the league. It's about running the basketball world. And the last thing I'll say is you can talk about if you're walking through New York City, are you going to see more Knicks hats or Nets hats? If you're walking through anywhere in the world, you're going to see more Nets merch than almost any other merch, according to the statistics, because the Nets are the second highest selling team when it comes to jerseys. All 3 of the Nets' big 3 are in the top 5, only losing out to LeBron for top selling jerseys. So I don't know.
They're in denial, bro. They're in denial, bro. They're trying to find any little thing. Like, you think we care about orange and blue hats being everywhere compared to our black and white stuff? No, we've only been wearing these black and white uniforms not even a decade. We've only been in New York since 2012, not even a decade. So give it some time. Like Hudson said about the jersey sales, it's evident. These young kids are buying jerseys that say Brooklyn on them, right? These kids are buying jerseys that say Nets on them that are throwbacks to the 91 New Jersey Nets. Now let's talk about that, right? When I say these guys are in denial, I've watched this rivalry go from New Jersey versus New York. It was actually a better narrative when it was New Jersey versus New York because it fit all the other narratives that New Yorkers like to have with, bridge and tunnel. Oh, they live in the swamp. Oh, the, New Yorkers with their gas pumping. And I don't even know. I'm a Jersey guy. But now that they're actually in your state and you're talking about rent free, well, the rent in Brooklyn is expensive. Like the rent is expensive in Manhattan. Like we're in the same area. We're a couple stops away on the subway. And you're in denial that little brother is now not just big brother, like gigantic brother, Nets world, big three. And nobody wants to come play for the Knicks. We built this culture while y'all were sitting over there talking about, I don't know what they were talking about, but we built this culture that attracted KD, Kyrie, Harden, now Blake Griffin. And you couldn't do that. You know why you couldn't do that? Because of James Dolan, because of other LOL Knicks moments, whether it was Patrick Ewing just now, or you disrespecting the great Charles Oakley, or, James Dolan saying not to speak out on Black Lives Matter or any issues of social injustice. Like, hold this L, Knicks fans. You can try and find anything out there, right, to say, oh, well, the Knicks will forever be like, that's not what we're playing for. We're playing for championships. We're playing to win. And the Nets organization has figured that out a lot faster than the Knicks. And this is setting precedent for decades. This team and the next couple years, they're going to make fans out of a bunch of young kids in this tri-state area and beyond. Overseas, shout out to our overseas folks. Always got to say that. In the UK, man, even overseas as far as China. There's going to be a bunch of kids saying Brooklyn. There's going to be a bunch of kids that rep what we rep, and we're going to see this change over time. So y'all sit tight. I will say I like what they've done this year. The organization has changed. They hired some new people in the front office. They got some players. At least they look like an NBA team. At least they look like a competitive NBA team. They've been like disgustingly trash. Like couldn't even watch them in the past. So congrats. You've actually put together an organization that can field a competitive NBA team. But that's it. You don't even get a participation trophy for that.
Until the Nets get made fun of in a Disney movie for being so bad, I don't think there's really any discussion. They got roasted by Soul. Like I'm past it, but I don't know. I kind of want to talk about something less toxic before we wrap this up because I know we're getting over 30 some minutes. Caris LeVert's back.
Oh,
the greatest happy story in the history of the NBA. Caris LeVert recovers after a diagnosis of a renal cell carcinoma in his kidney, his renals, and he comes back and he plays his first game for the Pacers, puts up some good numbers. You could see, obviously, he was still getting used to the pace of NBA play after a long time, but man, Nets fans, Nets Twitter, the NBA, everyone's always going to have love for Caris LeVert because of everything he's gone through, everything he's recovered from, even going back to that gruesome leg injury against the T-Wolves a couple years ago. Everything he's done has led him to this point of just being an awesome player and an even better guy. And honestly, the one thing I just say about him and Jared Allen is once a net, always a net. We're always going to be rooting for you. And man, a first-round matchup against the Pacers, that would be fun because I'd love to see Caris come back and play the Nets. And like we're going to see on Wednesday, next game after the Knicks.
I'm so glad you mentioned Caris. I loved everything you did on Twitter. Applause. Hudson crushed the debut of Caris LeVert. And if you're a Nets fan and you love Caris like we love Caris, I'm sure you appreciated that. Nets Twitter appreciated it. Everybody was joining in and showing our guy love. As we should. He is ours no matter where he goes. All right. From one Midwest Indianapolis Indy Pacers to another guy who's with us from the Midwest.
Keith, Hudson, my guys, what's up? It's Louis here from Minnesota. I called back earlier a couple weeks ago. Just wanted to say how good of a great game that was. It felt so good to watch Nets basketball again. Shout out Landry Shamet. And shout out fucking Kyrie Irving. I can't wait to be in Brooklyn soon. I'm coming from Minnesota. I'm coming to a Nets game. I'm meeting y'all boys. And Keith, we're going to a Yankee game. It's coming up, baby. It's Nets World. We know. Let's go.
Let's get it.
Love it. We got talk about who runs New York, who runs Minnesota.
Yo, but that's the thing, right? This Talkin Nets podcast is starting to grow. I remember when we didn't have anyone leaving voicemails, and shout out to Louis. He called, and I think I started one of the podcasts because he said he was watching it in class in Minnesota. I love that. I love being able to reach people from all over and make them feel a part of this thing, because they are. And he mentioned the Yankees and coming to Brooklyn, and I'm so excited for everything. We just had daylight savings time pass. We had good weather in New York. I was out in New York Friday night, and I'm like, man, the city is alive. There's just people wearing masks. It's the same thing. Like, the city looks like I remember it, but people are wearing masks. And pretty soon, more people are going to be vaccinated. Pretty soon, more things are going to be opening and capacities are going to change. And I mean, I'm not worried about getting in the Barclays Center anymore, because the prices are OD, and what we do covering the games, I just think is more important right now. Maybe in the playoffs, we'll try and figure out how to get into a game as fans and take a night off. But I don't know. I think taking a night off is counterproductive for what we're doing here. We're reaching people in Minnesota. We
get yelled at when we take nights off. We took a night off earlier in the year for our live event. We had people all up in our Twitter mentions asking where we were. And as the guy that runs the Twitter, very flattering. Thank you. I'm glad you appreciate the service I'm doing you all.
And good segue into our next live show. Tailgate
We're getting pretty good at this podcasting thing, Keith, with the segues.
Yo, thanks for reminding me. Tailgate Brooklyn, part 2. We will be at Tailgate for the Lakers game. Now, if you look at the tickets for when the Lakers come to Brooklyn, unless you want to go sit at the tippy top of the Barclays Center for $500. I just don't think anyone wants to do that. Not far from the Barclays Center, about 10, 15 minutes down the road, you can come to Tailgate Brooklyn. We're going to do a live podcast and meetup again, but this time it won't be literally 25 degrees. Maybe there won't be any rain either. Last time we got freezing rain, had some tech difficulties, had some different sound issues and all these other things.
Still met some great Nets fans, though. That was a lot of fun.
But exactly
how much fun that was.
All in all, it was a win, and that was the test drive. That was the experiment. And now we're going to do it again, and we're going to do it bigger and better. It is going to be warmer, and we want more of you to show up, more of you to come out. We talked to the owner about maybe throwing a ticket on this, or like trying to get – no, it's free, right? We're not going to put any money on it. It's literally free to show up. All you got to do is book a reservation through resi.com. You could literally Google Tailgate Brooklyn. The date is Saturday, April 10th. We'll be there from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. Like I said, doing a meetup, probably giving out some stickers, some free merch. Then we'll do a quick Talkin Nets episode. You guys will get to watch the game with me, Hudson, and the rest of the Talkin Nets fam. I'm sure Twitchy will be there. I know Mr. Burn noticed said he's pulling up. Dane mentioned he's going to pull up. My girl Angela from the fan cave that lives in Brooklyn, she said she's coming. And I think that's what's going to happen this time. The first one, there was snow on the ground. And we were, like I said, we were ambitious. We were just trying to be the first people in 2021 to do a live podcast. And we were. I still haven't seen anyone else doing a live podcast. Now, second time around, we're going to do this thing right. It's going to be nice weather. I can't wait. I was actually supposed to go to Tampa for the opening series of the Trop. I canceled that. One, because I wanted to do this live show, and this is the best date. Like, I looked at all the games in the second half. I'm like, this is the best date as far as it being on a Saturday and the opponent. I'm not going to Tampa. I couldn't see myself paying $500 to get into Tropicana, same way I don't see myself paying $500 to get into Barclays Center. Plus, like, Tropicana is one of the worst baseball stadiums in America. You should never pay more than $50 to get in there, but that's a whole nother story. We'll see you at Tailgate Brooklyn, April 10th. Be sure to join us. Leave a voicemail like Lewis did. Call the voicemail. It's 201-870-0461. Let's get the voicemails in this week. Some of them I didn't play because of the break. They were old. Sorry if I missed you, but call us up. Tell us what you think about this Knicks game after we play the Knicks tonight, because we won't pod again until, later on this week after we play the Pacers or we see Caris. Oh, man. So call the voicemail. Make sure you follow us at Talkin Nets. Hudson has been crushing the Twitter. It's great for me because now I have a lot of the Yankee stuff going on and my own stuff going on, and family holidays and birthdays and stuff. And I can trust that Hudson's going to go on and do his thing on Twitter. Make sure you follow us there. You can follow me at Keith McPherson. Hudson, where can they follow you?
They can follow me at Hudson Flynn on all platforms.
I'm trying to get his followers up. He's focused on the Talkin Nets followers. That's fine because it's not even like your burner. It's literally like your account. So you got two accounts. But tweeting as Talkin Nets is way more fun than tweeting as Hudson Flynn, I imagine. So follow him there because I just try and bolster his account. Subscribe to the pod, rate the pod, review the pod, tell a friend to tell a friend we're talking Nets. And that's all we've got for this episode. Hudson, anything else?
That's all we got. Leave some reviews. I'm feeling some more reviews. We read a review on the last podcast and on the one before. I want to keep it rolling. I don't like that we missed a day to read a review on this one.
Yeah, it's growing. Like, honestly, I'm just pleased at the timing with the Nets winning with this podcast. We're approaching 100 episodes. We'll have to do something cool for that. People are following. People are liking what we're doing. So as we get to the playoffs, I expect it to just keep going. We want to meet you guys. We want to shout you guys out on the podcast. We want to build this Nets fam, this Talkin Nets fam, this Nets world community, and like literally just have the best summer we can as the world is reopening and the best run to the finals and a championship and a parade. You already know what it is, man. Let's go Nets. Brooklyn.